So this is our first event that we've had a student showcase, and it's our first time that we've extended the meeting to a half day after the event. And it looks like it's worked out. Look at how many people we have here. It's great, and I think we'll get more as the morning goes through. I'm not going to say much at all, and I'm just going to introduce a really good friend of mine, Vineet, who is kind of the leader and organizer of this. I'm looking at this judges panel here, and I'm going, oh my God, I'd hate to be in front of you guys. And anyways, Vineet, it's all yours.
So good morning, everybody. So the morning sort of split up into two parts. The first part, we're going to have this great, fabulous keynote speaker, Lisa DeLuca, who I'm going to introduce in a second. And then the second half, we have six student teams who are going to be presenting. Each one will have 15 minutes, so about 10 minutes presentation, 5 minutes Q&A from the judges. After those are over, the judges are going to convene in a secret place, no cameras, no microphones, and we're going to pick a winner. And hopefully the audience will all stick around, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes, and we'll announce who the winner is. So let me start off by introducing our keynote speaker, Lisa DeLuca. And we're really, really fortunate to have Lisa here. I didn't know who she was until I was introduced to her as the moderator, and it's very impressive. She is the most prolific female inventor in IBM history at 33, let me add. She was one of the youngest inventors to reach the 100th invention plateau at IBM. I had to keep double checking these numbers because I found them hard to believe. Her invention portfolio includes over 650 U.S. and foreign patent applications filed, of which 250 have been granted. I mean, that's like astonishing. And of course, as you can imagine, she's received many accolades, including MIT's 35 Innovators Under 35, LinkedIn's Next Wave of 10 Enterprise Technologists Under 35, Fast Company's 100 Most Creative People in Business, and here's probably the most interesting one, IBM's Working Mother of the Year for Working Mother magazine. So not only has she been so inventive, but she's also the mother of 2 pairs of twins. All 4 under 3 years old. That's quite an accomplishment. And in her spare time, she's found time to self-publish a children's book titled A Robot Story. And when I looked online, I discovered on her webpage that she's actually got a second book that she just informed me is about to arrive from China, also self-published, called Internet. I'm going to get this right. The Mysterious, tell me what it is. Because I had it one way, then she corrected me, and I can't read my own writing.
The Internet of Mysterious Things.
The Internet of Mysterious Things. So it's not IoT, it's IMT. So, and she financed that on Kickstarter, and you know, it's quite amazing. So welcome, Lisa. Come and talk.
All right, I'm going to try this. Okay, so my talk today is, what does an inventor look like? One of my all-time favorite movies is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Wayne Szalinski is a scientist and an inventor. And spoiler alert, he comes up with this invention that shrinks his children and the neighbor's children. And he gets really frustrated, and he heads out the door to go to a conference where basically his peers are laughing at him for coming up with this invention. And meanwhile, his kids, sneak into his lab and are shrunk down to a quarter of an inch tall. And then he gets home and he smashes his invention, and he's sweeping up the pieces of his device, and he actually takes his children out to the trash. And they spend the rest of the movie trying to crawl from the backyard back into the house to get their father to reverse the effects of the machine. So the movie came out in 1989, so it was the first time that I was probably exposed to a real inventor. Before that, I probably knew a little bit about the common inventors we hear of all the time, like Thomas Edison, Alexander Bell, and Benjamin Franklin. But I mean, look at them. They're in black and white. It looks like someone tore them out of a history book. It's not something that I could really relate to. I felt like Wayne Szalinski was more real than they were. So here I was, a 7-year-old in Montana, and I never really thought of myself or pictured myself as growing up to be an inventor. I grew up in Montana, and it's probably one of the most beautiful states in the country. And now that I'm a parent, it's genius that my parents took us there, because there really isn't much trouble that kids can get into. So my older brother, younger sister, and I, we had to make our own trouble. So we were always getting our hands dirty and being really creative, turning our toys, bringing them to life, and thinking about what the future might hold. So when I thought about myself and thinking about college, like what am I going to do with myself? What did I like to do? I knew I liked to be on the computer. So when I wasn't playing sports or hanging out with my family and friends, I was always on AOL Instant Messenger, talking to my friends all night long, surfing the internet. And I was like, okay, 4 hours felt like 4 minutes. Like that's what I'm looking for in a career. I want something that's going to just pull me in and make it feel more like fun than work. So I did some Google searching, and I guess, was Google around then? Probably not. I did some searching, and I was like, okay, this degree in computer science, that sounds interesting. So I applied to Carnegie Mellon University, and I ended up getting accepted and deciding to go to Carnegie Mellon before I had even taken a single coding class. So I graduated from high school, jump into the car with my parents, and we drive across the country to Pittsburgh. And I show up and I'm like, what did I get myself into? Like little buyer's remorse, right? I'm like, these classes are hard. Looking around, all the students were like mini Wayne Szalinskis. Like they were geniuses, and they could probably teach all the classes. And I couldn't really relate to a lot of them. But I started doing some internships and just fell in love with being a software engineer. Like I could picture my life as an engineer and writing code, and I'm like, I'm gonna stick with this, I'm gonna get this degree. And I did a couple internships with big companies, and ended up taking an internship with IBM, 2 internships, but the summer between my junior and senior year, I was in Raleigh, North Carolina for an Extreme Blue program. And they really spoil you there. So I was on a team of other interns, and we had an MBA student, and we were working on a real problem that had high visibility within IBM. And every week they would bring out these executives that would come and talk about their careers and talk about what it meant to be an IBMer to them. So immediately, I'm gonna work for IBM. Like this is the company for me. So shortly after going into my senior year, I accepted a full-time position with IBM after I graduated. So I graduate, and I go down to Austin, Texas to work with the WebSphere process server division. So I can remember one of my first conversations with my new manager, Al Sanchez Cifuentes. I was sitting across from him and his desk in this little room with no windows. And he starts talking, and my eyes wander behind him, and I can see all these awards and accolades behind him, traditional, his diploma and those kind of things. And I notice hanging on the wall is what looks like a patent figure. And I look a little closer, and it says United States Patent, and it has his name. And my heart kind of skips a beat. Like, what did I get myself into? Like, my boss is Wayne Szalinski. And I'm looking around, I'm half expecting some laser pointer to be, focused on me and shrink me down to a quarter of an inch. But, the rest of what he said was a blur. I don't even know what he was saying. But at one point he stands up, and I stand up as well. And he walks around and starts introducing me to my soon-to-be new coworkers. And at each person that I was introduced to, I noticed that they also had a patent award. So now I'm like getting excited. And at that point, I'm like, I'm going to be an inventor. Like, I'm going to be an inventor. All these people are just normal people. They look just like me. None of them were scary. They were normal, regular people. So I get settled into my job and start asking around, like, how do I submit a patent application? I want to do this. And I realized it was just an application that I install on my computer. And there were 3 questions. You know, the background, what's the summary of your invention, and what are the technical steps? I'm like, I can do this. So I start thinking, what is my invention idea going to be? Like, what problem am I going to solve? And as I mentioned, I was a software engineer, so I was writing code in Java, and a lot of times when I wanted to see when my code was being executed, I'd put a system out message and a bunch of stars. And I'd wait for that star to show up in the console, and then I'd say, okay, my code's being executed. So I thought, there's got to be a better way. Why do I have to put stars in? Why not, that output console looks a lot like a website, a browser. Why can't I style those system messages just like you can style a web browser? So I did some research. I couldn't find anything like it, and that was my idea. So I was going to apply like cascading style sheets to system out messages, so you can change the font color and size, and you could even have an anime clip art, those like dancing bananas. Like when my code was executed, it'd be really exciting. So I'm like ready to hit the submit button to submit my idea. And I'm like, no way, that's too easy. There's got to be something more to this. So when I was doing my internship in Raleigh, one of the executives that came by was Sam Adams. He's a distinguished engineer at IBM, and you can't really tell by the picture, but he's an intimidating, at least 6'6" guy, very big, and when he talks, the whole room listens. And he was just oozing with passion for his job and excitement for his career and what he was doing at IBM, that I kind of latched on. I'm like, I want to be this guy. Like, he's impressive. And at the end of his presentation, he had an open invitation to all the interns that he would personally mentor each of us if we wanted to. So after his presentation, I sent him an email and I was like, you're going to be my mentor. And I had a conversation with him in person, and we kind of kept that mentoring relationship going. So when I was about to hit that submit button, I'm like, I should run it by Sam. So I called Sam up and I sent him an email with a link to my invention idea. And I said, like, what do you think? And he's like, I really like this idea. It's a great idea. And we talked. He helped me hone it in a little bit. He added some ideas to extend it. So I felt like he was contributed enough to be a co-inventor. So I added him and hit the submit button. So about 2 months later or so, it's a slow process, I get the email that says I'm invited to come and present my invention idea. And at that point, all of the IDTs, we call them invention development teams, were local. So you went and presented in front of a group of people that were subject area experts, a lot like an art unit might be for the USPTO. So these people knew what they were talking about. They knew all the prior art in the areas. And so I go in, I walk into the room, and it's a bunch of Wayne Zelenskys. And I'm like, okay, I'm a little intimidated, a little nervous, and I pitch my idea. I've got Sam on speakerphone because he's in Raleigh and I'm in Austin, so we weren't together. And he chimes in a little bit as I'm done with my presentation, and they're asking me questions. And then they ask me to leave the room, and I'm like, pacing in the hallway. I'm like, I hope they like my idea. Like, oh, I wish I said this and I forgot this. And then they invite me back in. And it turned out they liked my idea. So I ended up getting a search rating, which at IBM means that we get a formal search process that goes out and sees if this invention exists. So they spend a little money up front to see whether or not it's a good investment to actually pursue a patent application. And that came back clear. I had to respond to some differentiate some search results. But in the end, I ended up working with an attorney to write up my disclosure. So that idea was filed and eventually issued as a patent application, my very first invention ever. And from then, I was hooked. Like, I was addicted. Like, this is fun. Like, I love inventing, and being an inventor at IBM, it challenges me, kind of like when going back to me as a little girl, like that creative mindset, that talking to other people about, making your toys come alive, and what does the future look like. That's what it's like for me to invent. And I love feeding off of other people and taking one idea in a new direction and solving problems. And for me, that's what drives me to be an inventor. So yeah, I was thinking about this talk and what it means to be an inventor to me, and what's the most important thing about it. And an unexpected side effect of being an inventor is just all the other inventors that you meet along the way. So of course I've met a lot of people from IBM, but I'm also a AAAS Lemelson Invention Ambassador. So I know there's a lot of us in the room. Actually, can you stand up if you're an Invention Ambassador? I want to see who's here. Yay. Yay. Thank you. So, a lot of these faces probably look familiar to you all, but you can see that it's a very diverse group of people. And even more so in our diversity is the diversity of our ideas. We all come from all these different backgrounds, and inventions can be around any sort of topic. Just to call out a few, Dr. Juan Gilbert, and I know his team's in the room, but Juan is from the University of Florida and has done a lot of inventions around accessibility, and was part of some of the first inventions for accessible voting machines. Dr. Rory Cooper from the University of Pittsburgh has also contributed a lot to prosthetics and helping people in wheelchairs and in need. Rick Hamilton, I mentioned I'm IBM's most prolific female inventor, so the most prolific inventor is Rick, and he's got about 3 times as many patents as me, so I'm closing that gap every day. I'm going to catch up with him. But like me, he's got ideas from all over the place. IoT, all the top technologies that come out, that's what really gets us thinking about ideas. So cognitive computing, artificial intelligence. Karen is, if anyone has any complaints about this talk, please see Karen. She is the one that invited me up here, so thank you, Karen. But she's got some pretty amazing inventions herself, and her team is working, on all sorts of crazy Wayne Zelensky type ideas that can improve, surgery and so on. And then Michael Smith, who's also industry like myself, a director over at Intel. He's got a lot of inventions related to facial recognition and image processing and Internet of Things. So a lot has changed since I was a little girl, and the media around what it means to be an inventor. Today we have shows like Shark Tank, and I personally want to meet Laura Grenier. But it's so inspiring to see these people and how passionate about their ideas they are every week. If you don't watch the show, I highly recommend it, and see how they pitch their idea and pour their heart and soul into what they come up with. A lot of inventors that are you might not know of. Did you know that Michael Jackson was an inventor? Yeah, he came up with this idea for an anti-gravity effect. So on the bottom of his shoes and his backup dancers, there was a little clip. And then on the stage, there was a little clip so they could clip their shoes in and then lean really forward or really back to give the illusion of anti-gravity. Jamie Lee Curtis has an invention around a diaper with a pocket in it. And I didn't look further to what the pocket was for. Maybe the dirty wipe, I don't know. I need to get some of these, but I thought that was interesting. George Lucas is well known for his films, but he also has a lot of patents related to protecting the figures, like the toy figurines for the main characters in the films. Prince has an invention related to a new musical instrument. And then when I was doing some research, I reached out to Liz Doherty over there at the USPTO, and I asked about young inventors, because I think that's always really inspiring to see kids and what they're coming up with. And she told me the story of Marissa Strang, which I read a little bit about. And as a third grader, one of her projects was to come with an invention. And that's kind of a similar background to myself. Like I had an idea also when I was a young girl. But she actually prototyped and created this invention to make it easier to dry off her loving pet. So here's her pug, and she created this little vest that you can put a blow dryer in and dry them off really fast. So I thought that was really cool that she's actually prototyping and making this invention available for everyone. And Liz mentioned that perhaps the youngest inventor on record to have a patent is Sydney Dittman. So Sydney was a 2-year-old, about the same age as my girls. They're a year and a half, and her parents tried to keep her out of the kitchen. I don't want you pulling all the cabinets open. So she takes her toys and sticks them together and creates this plunger-like thing that can hook onto a knob in the kitchen and open it. And so her dad decides, let's file a patent on this. It could be really good for accessible people who can't twist or pull the knobs. So they go ahead and file a patent, and by age 4, she was an inventor. I got to work on my kids, they're behind. So now at IBM, I'm a master inventor, and part of being a master inventor is mentoring other people and helping other people through the process. And this young man, Jeremy Greenberger, came to me. He's probably been with IBM 3 years, and he heard my story, and he's like, Lisa, can you mentor me? And I say yes. I say yes to everybody. And we start talking, and I quickly realize, he doesn't need my help. He's a lot like me. He's just going at it and turning out ideas and just loving what he's doing. And in fact, the two of us, when we get together, one idea becomes 7 very quickly. But when we got to talking a little bit more, he told me about his mom, who is also an inventor. And Sherry Greenberger came up with this idea for what she calls necklets, and I'm actually wearing one. They're really cool. It's basically this, I had to beg, send me samples. But you can make your outfit that looks rather plain a little more exciting by adding these, almost like a necklace that you can magnet on and off, and you can take them off to clean your clothes. So really cool. His mom is an inventor. He was born to do this, and everyone in his family is really big into inventing. And speaking of a parent that's an inventor, I found out almost, I don't know if it was before I got married or after, but my father-in-law is Dr. Neil DeLuca. He's at the University of Pittsburgh, and he's a virologist, and he has a few patents as well. I'm like, wow, small world. My father-in-law is also an inventor. But probably my favorite inventor of all is this woman. She's got 3 kids and 10 grandchildren, and she's my mom. I swear that I call my parents every week, and I tell them my new business idea. I'm like, okay, I'm going to leave IBM, and I'm going to start a business. This is what it's going to be. It's going to be the best thing ever. And about last year, I called my mom, and I told her about one of these great ideas. And she's like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if? And that's how I think a lot of my ideas come around, is wouldn't it be cool if? And she told me her extension to my business idea, and I'm like, Mom, that's a patent. That's a great idea. And so I mentored my mom through the process. So I, sat down with her. We wrote a background of the disclosure. I showed her how to write claims and do the specification and come up with figures. And she submitted an invention as a pro se inventor. So she's not an inventor, an official inventor yet. I guess she doesn't have her issue or grant. But my mom, I helped her through the process. So recently, I don't know if Will Smith's an inventor. I doubt it. But he was speaking at a conference I was at recently, and he was really inspiring. He was talking about how his life mission is to inspire other people and help them have better lives. And he was talking about one of his movies, The Pursuit of Happiness, which I actually haven't seen. But he was saying that one of the scenes in the movie, he is reaching down and talking to his son. And his son said something about but they said, I can't do it. And he said, well, son, when someone tells you it can't be done, it means that they can't do it. And that is the mindset of an inventor. Push yourself. push yourself around the norm, what's expected, what you think it is today, and push yourself into thinking a little differently. And that's what it takes to being an inventor. So looking back, what does an inventor look like? All these people are inventors that I showed you, except for Will Smith. But look around you. This room is full of inventors and other people that come up with crazy ideas. They're so different from each other, as well as the ideas are different from each other. So an inventor can be anyone. So thank you.
We have plenty of time for Q&A, so we have questions.
I wasn't expecting questions.
You're going to have to invent your way to do
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Am I on?
Yeah, great talk. Very impressive and still, energizing, old people like me. I think one comment here or question, again, you have been so productive and at IBM. How can you comment a little bit about the environment there in terms of the process also for really, taking those ideas, as you say, it's a very simple process, and how do you really, come to the point that you get a patent? Because I think it's quite unique to those companies versus, what may happen in academia, for example.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know enough about what it's like for you all, but at IBM we really foster innovators and we encourage everyone to submit patent ideas. I don't know what the stats are for the number of people that actually patent, but it's one of my favorite things is that you can submit this idea and it doesn't matter if you've been with the company for 25 years or 5 months. Every idea stands for itself. But we really foster innovation and we have invention development teams that are all about helping you to get that idea through. And maybe it's not that idea, maybe it's just mentoring you on what IBM is looking for and what could be valuable to the company and mentoring you through the process in order to submit it. But I love meeting with people from all over the company and just talking with everybody. A diverse group of people come up with a really diverse inventions. So I tend to have a key brainstorming group that I meet with consistently, and we each try to write up a few ideas or come up with a few ideas during a quick hour session on the phone. And then sometimes, I have groups that aren't as productive, and it's really hard to get those ideas pulled out, in which case we either part ways or we come back a new day when we're more energized with new ideas. So yeah, they really foster innovation, and it's a pretty easy process because, I don't have to write the idea up myself. We get assigned a lawyer that does it. I think if I were writing them, my numbers would be a lot lower. But like I said, I helped my mom as a pro se inventor, and I've done 2 myself outside of IBM where I wrote the whole application. So it's been a really fun learning experience.
One of the ones that Lisa did on her own is, and I'd love to hear how you came up with this idea. It's a really cool idea. So when you go to a concert and you have an assigned seat, so she came up with the idea, like, why do you have to sit in that same seat through the whole concert? Couldn't you, have a system where you could move and everybody could move seats during the concert? So you started a company, but she needs a management team. Anyway, so tell us how you came up with that idea.
Okay, so I lived in San Francisco right after I moved. I was in Austin for a year, and then I moved to San Francisco. And one of my friends from Austin came to visit, and we went to an A's game. And she was in like the awesome seats down front, and I was in the nosebleeds. I'm like, I'm not spending a lot of money on this. And so we're texting each other, and she's like, you should sneak down and be down close. And I'm like, yeah. And I was sitting up there by myself, and I was thinking, a lot of people are like my friend, where they're just coming to experience the baseball stadium. They don't really care who's playing. They just want to experience the stadium, really. So I thought it'd be fun if you could pay proportionally for how long you're in different parts of the venue. So you could sit behind home plate, maybe just for 1 inning, and pay, 1/7 of however long you were there. And then you could also sit in the nosebleeds and just have all these different experiences throughout the stadium. So I got really excited. I'm like, I'm gonna start my business. I went and got got my master's degree in technology commercialization. I'm like, how do I go about starting my business? I reached out to about 15 professional teams and told them about it, and they were all like, this is an awesome idea, but we don't want to be first. So I had a really hard time kind of pushing my idea through, and then my career at IBM just kind of skyrocketed, and I haven't had a chance to devote to starting a business as I wish I had. So that idea has been put on hold. So if anyone wants to start a business, come see me.
And it's got a great name.
Split ticks, yeah.
One of the most important things in starting a company, I think we've all learned, is give it a great name.
And it's hard because all the domain names are taken. I go to GoDaddy, I'm like, but no one's using it.
So now they have all these extensions, so you can do split ticks
Dot
whatever.
me.
Me
But
or biz or,
nobody knows how to do that, though.
yeah. Another question?
Yeah. Hello. My name is G, and I'm a postdoc at MIT. And I have a question for students, which is, how did you decide to do invention and research in industry versus in academia, and maybe other, or like your own business, I guess, would be another way?
I'm married to a PhD scientist, and I give you guys all credit. I don't know, being in academia is a lot harder. I mean, there's all this pressure. He's like, I gotta write papers. And sometimes there's this conflict. He's like, why are you writing patents? You should do publications. And I'm sure you all know this argument very well in academia. But yeah, it never really occurred to me to go back to academia. I didn't want to be a teacher, and when I thought about being in academia, I thought like that's what it meant. Now I think it'd be so fun to be a teacher, and I like presenting in front of people, so it'd be fun to share those ideas and encourage the next generation. But for me, as a computer scientist, I didn't see the need to get a PhD for what I wanted to do with computer science. I got my master's, like I said, but that was mostly because it was my personal growth. Like, I wanted to learn how to start a business. It wasn't because I needed that degree to promote me through IBM. So that's really why I made the decision. Another life.
Cool, thanks.
Any other questions? There's one up here. Here.
So you have a lot of patents and applications that IBM has sponsored. I'm sure there's only a percentage that they are actually interested in doing something with.
Yeah.
So I'm just a little bit curious about that process. And then also, if they're not interested, do they give you the freedom to go off and do something on your own with the ones that they helped you patent?
So that's a hard question, right? A lot of the inventions are used. As an inventor, we're not really privy to what IBM does with it, how they sell it, how they license it. We don't know, which would be really cool to know, how your inventions are being used. But we're never told that information. So the only way to guarantee that I know that my inventions are going into a product is to do it myself. So a lot of the inventions that I come up with, especially like now that I'm a more seasoned inventor, are around my day job and things that I know that I can put into product, and I know that they're going to be used. I can look up on the USPTO website which of my inventions have been licensed to other companies. So I know like some of my inventions have gone to Snapchat and Twitter, and it's really cool to see where they're at or who's purchased those inventions. But if there's something that I know I've invented and I haven't seen IBM using, we're not given the rights to go and do it ourselves. We sign away all of our rights to IBM. I mentioned that I've done 2 myself outside of IBM, and I had to get a disclaimer of title, and I had to go to them and say, this isn't in line with IBM's business. Is it okay for me to go and pursue on my own? And that first one with the ticketing business, I'm like, IBM's not in the sports field. Like, I should be fine. And it turns out we are. I think IBM's everywhere, and we're doing so many different things. So IBM has some rights to that invention as well. And then my second idea is more kind of like the Sydney idea of the little kid in the Tupperware drawer. I thought it'd be fun to put wheels on the lid of the Tupperware container so the kids could like flip it around and be like a car to play with. I thought of that when I was out on maternity leave with my girls. But that one issued as well, so pretty fun side one that's outside of IBM and clearly outside of our IBM business.
We have one question from Dr. Sandberg, and then one from over there. Let's do Carol.
This is a little bit of a follow-on, actually, because you just alluded to, you talk a lot about your inventions, but you alluded to your day job.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what you do as your primary function? I assume that's the day job at IBM. How the patents relate to that, and then how you've built patents that are not related to that, and is that like your free time, or how does that relate to your work?
Sure. Yeah, I think if I were an inventor full-time, I'd probably be like the world's most prolific inventor. But I just invent for fun. It's nights and weekends, and I do have a day job. I'm a software engineer in our Watson Customer Engagement business unit within IBM. So our team is a cognitive incubation team, so I'm currently doing a new project related to some machine learning and recommendations. So it's all about retail and commerce in our organization. So I'm looking into smarter ways to serve up recommendations based on user behavior. So if you're at a website, you know, how can you personalize those recommendations to different people who are viewing your site? So yeah, inventing is the nice and fun, you know, it's the side things, and I love to do things outside of work to just keep myself excited about my day job. You know, the more things I do that are fun, that are just my personal interests, it seems like the more I'm excited about my day job as well. So like the kids' book, they don't have anything to do with being a software engineer, but at the same time, it's me sharing my knowledge with that next generation. And both of them I try to do a little fun, have a tech spin. So the first one teaches you how to count to 10 in binary. And then the Internet of Mysterious Things is probably one of the first kids' books that has an NFC tag. So you can tap your phone to it and it pulls up more information about the story. So it's really nerdy as well.
Lisa, that was wonderful. I just wish my daughter, who's in college, was here to be inspired by you. She needs it. No, I didn't say that. Anyways, so we've had some discussions here for the last few days, and about industrial and university relationships. And clearly IBM, and you've given us a hint of what they do, and IBM is the #1 company for the most patents every year, about 5,000, which is almost the same as all the American universities together or so. So it's really fun to hear. But so tell us, does IBM have relationships with universities? You have a husband that's probably in a university or so. And we're trying to build those relationships clearly in the future. Any insights into there or how that works or anything would be great.
Yeah. Actually, one of my husband's friends, who's a PhD scientist, he's now at Penn State, he sent me an email and he said, I'm pitching to IBM, can you give me any advice? And I'm like, why is he pitching to IBM? He's a professor, and I think he's zoology or something. But he said that IBM has all these grants that they're giving out to universities, and it's to help fund, you know, analyzing your data, gives you some machines and cloud space, anything that you want. You can probably find it from a lot of tech companies are willing to donate that kind of resources back to universities to be a part of the research that you all are doing. I'm not specifically part of the groups that work with universities, but I know it exists. And if you are interested, you know, find me and I'll find the right people at IBM and help introduce you. But I mean, I was just talking with Frederick about the relationship between academia and universities, and I think there really should be more of that relationship. I mean, you guys struggle with commercializing your idea and making money from the inventions, and the same thing happens from a big company. I think IBM makes about $1 billion a year on our invention portfolio. It probably fluctuates each year, but that's a huge amount of money to where we can play a little bit and invest in some ideas that we're not as sure about. And I don't know if that's necessarily true for what you all are working with as well. But that relationship, it would be nice to see more interaction between the two.
Let's give it up for Lisa.
Thank you.